What's good, Yugioh? It's your boy Squiddy back in another video. We just had the largest Yu-Gi-Oh tournament in the history of the game that broke a Guinness World Record. And not just a Yu-Gi-Oh tournament, but rather the largest trading card game tournament in the history of, well, trading card games. Yes, this tournament was none other than YCS Japan, which was held in Tokyo over the past weekend, with a whopping 8,000 entrants actually registered. Now, for those of you guys that are not aware, this record was previously held by Magic the Gathering, which had a large Magic Fest in Las Vegas in 2015 that had a whopping 7,553 players. But even before the Magic tournament in 2015, the previous largest tournament was held by Yugioh again at YCS Long Beach in 2012, which exceeded over 4,000 players. And that was actually my first ever tournament. And I was introduced to YCSs through that event. I remember the convention hall being so large, they had to open another hall to accommodate everybody. It was absolutely epic. I cannot imagine twice the size of that. Now, for YCS Tokyo, only about 7,443 players actually showed up to the tournament, but I guess the Guinness World Record was taking into account how many entrants actually registered, which was the final number, 8,000. This is actually the 10th ever Japanese YCS that's held overseas. Previously, they had them across a couple of years, also in Tokyo, but none were as big as this. And it's interesting to note that in Japan, they actually have their YCSs as best of one. Now, why? I have no idea. It seems especially terrible if you think about it, because Yu-Gi-Oh is like a very, very high variance type of game, especially when you have the die roll into account. There's no resource system. People just spill a bunch of combos and cards on the table. If you don't have any hand traps, then you probably just lose on the spot. So best of one just seems absolutely ridiculous. Now, to add a little fuel to the flames on that, the fact that Max C actually exists, which allows you to draw a card every time your opponent special summons, and it basically ends the game on the spot, whether you're going second and you drop your Max C unhandled, or you go first and make a board and drop your Max C when your opponent's trying to play through your board. Yeah, it didn't make for a great sense to actually be a best of one tournament. There's also another hand trap released in Infinite Forbidden, which was actually legal for this major. And that card is called Molchummy Perulia, which is a card that allows you to draw a card every time your opponent summons a monster from the hand. And this card is actually up to twice per turn. So if you drop 2 copies, your opponent was drawing 2 cards every time you summon out of your hand. Now, from what I've heard, they actually intentionally make the YCSs in Japan best of one because of time constraints. Obviously, a best 2 out of 3 would take forever, and a lot of the times they had their YCS happen only on one single day, so they do not have to pay the insane rental costs in Tokyo, which is obviously super, super expensive. But I mean, Konami is a multi-billion-dollar company, so that doesn't really make an excuse. But that being said, I didn't make this to rag on Konami for it being best of one or the tournament structure, but rather to tell you guys about what the heck happened in this tournament. The tournament organizers, I have to give props to. They definitely went above and beyond to set up a bunch of cool features throughout the hall. It was not just playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but there were side events. They had a lot of mascots. They had a dressed up giant large Karibo going around and crashing into things. They had a large Exodia Infinite Forbidden cardboard cutout that you could hide behind. And best yet, if you attended the event, no matter if you won or lost, you were able to receive a bunch of swag and a bunch of goodie bags. You got a free commemorative 10th anniversary YCS Japan token, alongside some other cool things like playmats and some bags and dice. Now, with the tournament this big, you're probably wondering, wow, what the heck could possibly be the prizing? Well, if you're no stranger to the game, then you're probably not going to be very surprised. Prize support left a lot to be desired. The top cut finishers actually received a cool commemorative tablet Blue Eyes White Dragon / Dark Magician playmat, and the top 64 finishers received a stainless steel copy of Gandora, the Dragon of Destruction, one of the signature monsters used by Yugi in the anime. Yeah, in OCG, they've had this tradition recently in the past couple of years of giving out stainless steel prize cards of existing older vanillas from the first generation of Yu-Gi-Oh, which is pretty cool. But then the breakdown for the actual first, second, and third was none other than just trophies alongside the Gandora and some booster boxes, which makes no sense. So yeah, it's a little sad to say that the prize support was basically awful. For 8,000 players, I mean, yeah. And especially because all the top cut finishers received the Gandora, did it really matter that you were going to top 4 or even winning the event? If all you're getting is a trophy, I mean, I guess glory's alright, but it would have been cool to get like a Ferrari or a sports car, or you know, like some prize money like in Magic the Gathering where you get $50,000 cash for actually winning a pro tour. Now moving on to the actual tournament structure. So this was actually double elimination, meaning that if you lost twice, you were knocked out of the tournament. So you had to go X1 or better in order to make the top cut, which was a top cut of 64 players. Now from what I've read on Twitter, they actually broke the room into 2 separate mini tournament brackets. So each side had 4,000 players, and then the top 32 from both sides would combine to make a top 64 on day 2. Now, obviously, when you play best of 1 in Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's a lot different than best 2 out of 3 because you have no side deck, so you do have to make some accommodations for your main deck. There were a lot of players main decking things like Cosmic Cyclone just to deal with the rogue decks that were out there, things like Runic Stun, which still happens to be a deck in the OCG as well. Not to mention Max C being at 3 alongside the Molchummy Perulia. They were getting Max Seed and Perulia left and right. Yeah, if you think about it, that's like 24,000 Max Cs in one single room. Interestingly enough, there were a lot of complaints on Twitter as well. A lot of the players were complaining about the best of 1 structure as well as double elimination, and a lot of decks that wouldn't normally work out well in best 2 out of 3 type Yu-Gi-Oh! Actually performed rather decent. We had an Ancient Gear deck that went as far as 4-2 before getting knocked out of the tournament, which is pretty interesting because Go Second Blind Ancient Gear OTK doesn't happen to be a very meta-relevant deck in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Outside of a tournament like this. Day 2 was actually a cut of the top 256 players, and then that was single elimination. So if you lost, you were out of the tournament, and they played all the way down to top 64. For the actual Day 2 metagame breakdown, they documented this across Twitter, and apparently there were a lot of variation, a lot of cool decks that we have never seen before, ranging from Tenpai Dragon to Snake Eye Fire King to Voiceless Voice, Yubel, Snake Eye, Gimmick Puppet, Runic, White Woods, Grass Branded. There were just so many different cool decks that were out there. The 2 brackets were combined on day 2, and that was 256 players who duked it out in single elimination until the top 64 remained. And then they started the live stream and actually broadcasted some of these matches on the live Konami stream, which was really awesome to see. Surprisingly, there were a lot of variants for the top 256 players on day 2, a whopping 72 Tenpai Dragons at the first slot, which makes a lot of sense because I guess Tenpai doesn't really care about winning or losing the die roll. They just want to go second anyways. So if your opponent is winning all the die rolls, it doesn't really matter for you unless it's a mirror match because chances are you're going to be going second like you want to. In second place was 28 Snake Eye Fire King, third place 12 Voiceless Voice, and then followed by 9 Yubels and 9 Snake Eyes. Interestingly enough, a lot of players were taking advantage of the new Fiendsmith archetype. Yep, this is actually a splashable engine. The Fiendsmith engine combos especially well with Snake Eye because they have a plethora of effects that allow you to actually bring themselves back and equip them as fodder in the spell and trap zone, so you can send that for something like a Diabell Star or the Black Witch. Additionally, there's also an OCG exclusive generic Link 2 that requires 2 effect monsters called Moon of the Closed Sky that you can just bridge into easily off of Snake Eye Ash and Poplar, for example. Any 2 monsters will allow you to make Moon of the Closed Sky, who is a light fiend monster that can be linked off into Fiendsmith Requiem, a Link 1 monster that requires any light fiend monster who can then be tributed to special summon out the main Fiendsmith character, who can then in turn equip back that Fiendsmith Link from the graveyard and also allow you to start fusion summoning and bring itself back as an additional Link climb material. Some players were also teching in the Millennium cards. Yeah, these are support for Exodia that's coming out in Infinite Forbidden, who allow you to establish a bunch of bodies on the board. These are really amusing because they're actually retrains of the existing cards like Millennium Shield, as well as Sengenjin and Millennium Golem, and they're really awesome because they allow you to pay your life points to search another copy that can search into another copy of themselves, and in turn link climb a bunch, while also being treated as continuous spell cards that can be sent off for your Snake Eyes combos or for your Diabell Star. Yeah, I thought it was really cool that these Exodia cards are actually splashable, and I'm really excited to try them out when they do come out. The top 32 was very diverse and interesting, although there were a lot of Tenpai Dragons. If you guys watch the final, then you'll know what happened. Spoiler alert, Voiceless Voice actually won, piloted by Takahashi Yutaro, who beat out Nakamura Toshihiro, who's playing Tenpai Dragons, and unfortunately the Tenpai player did break miserably in the feature match, but sometimes that's the way things go, especially in a best of 1. In third place was actually a pure Melodious deck, which is also very interesting. These cards have been somewhat hyped up in the TCG because we recently received some new support in Legacy of Destruction in the form of Melodious Refrain, as well as a new Botcha fusion that just makes Ostinato crazy. Salamangreat came in 4th place. We had Runic Stun in top 8, as well as Horus Gimmick Puppet. Yeah, Gimmick Puppets are apparently very viable, especially in a best of 1. Snake Eye was also in top 8 alongside another copy of Tenpai Dragons. Across top 16, we actually saw some cooler decks like Valance, which is a pendulum-based deck that obviously is made playable thanks to Electromite being at 1 in the OCG, but unfortunately in the TCG it's probably not as playable because we don't have that guy. Melodious Supreme King Pendulums also made top 8 alongside a pure Fire King deck that made use of their Fire King exclusive, which we also do not have. There was an anti-meta deck that also got top 16, which we did not see anywhere on social media. A lot of these players were sharing their deck across Twitter, which is where we gathered this information, but unfortunately some players did not show their goo, so we could not find exactly what it was, but we know from word of mouth that they did top. There's also a Centurion Whitewoods deck that was featured on stream. That did pretty well. Mementos got top 32 in addition to that. And there are just a lot of cool plays and a lot of cool engines that were demonstrated across the stream and at the event thanks to the new set being legal. So if you guys actually go on Twitter and search up YCS Japan Tokyo, you will find a lot of Twitter users because Twitter is big in the Japanese Yu-Gi-Oh! OCG community, and a lot of players and participants that actually attended posted their deck recipes whether or not they made day 2 or did well. And there were so many cool unique decks that I saw that is really exciting to look and probably draw inspiration for in the TCG. So that's about it. I want to do a quick little breakdown about the actual tournament because not a lot of information is available online in one place. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you guys think that TCG should ever do best of 1 YCS? I hope not, but let me know in the comments below. Other than that, smash that like button, subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for tuning in.